bow our heads? God of grace and God of mercy, I ask that the words of my mouth and the shared meditations of our hearts will become an acceptable offering of praise. We are connected. Your Spirit connects us. Receive our connectedness, which we joyfully yield up to you. Matters of friendship. Amen. It's been over 5 years since my last Sunday here, 20 September 2020. We were out on the lawn. Anybody remember this? I'm seeing some nodding heads. Out on the lawn, preached my final sermon. My daughter was here, Lisa was here, she spoke. And we did the United Church of Christ ritual of farewell. It was the thick of COVID. And it was a drive-by goodbye because we couldn't hug. We couldn't even shake hands. Talk about having the connectedness removed from you at an important time to affirm that connectedness. It was a drive-by goodbye, which sounds suspiciously like a drive-by shooting, but no, it was better than that. So Benjamin, Christine, and I hatched a little ritual toward the end of that service. We agreed that after the ritual of farewell, I would take off my pulpit gown, and this is why I'm not wearing a pulpit gown today. Took off my pulpit gown. They draped it over my chair. I ventured out among you in my shirt sleeves, and I sat with Cecile. And people sort of looked at us like, oh, wow, something just happened. Something just happened. It was a little ritual that was both startling and eloquent in its simplicity. I laid pastor aside and became civilian with you. I transitioned from pastor to friend. Ritual, even little rituals, capture and articulate life transitions more eloquently than any words we can summon. And that brings up the point how hard it is for active pastors and church members to be friends in a full and customary fashion while engaged here as your pastor. Why is that, we wonder together? Well, imagine. I must insist that your generosity matches your faith as you pledge, or as the roof is about to cave in on us. I must sometimes dismiss people you like or hire people you don't like. It's all part of the package, right? I must take stands on vital issues of our time that you might disagree with to compel you to re-examine your stand that we might make a Christ-like witness together. 3 examples of things that create distance that we don't have to contend with in more usual friendships. Well, guess what? All that has passed. I'm not wearing my pulpit gown to signify the bearing, the presentation of friendship, and that's what I'm preaching about, friendship as our enduring gift. Like I was saying, as Jesus' ministry climaxed, his disciples first exalted him, that was Palm Sunday, only hours and days later to flee and desert him. How did Jesus handle that? He didn't damn them as fickle ingrates and traitors. No, that was the moment he lifted them up. That was the moment he called them friends. A greater love hath no one, he said, than to lay down his life for his friends. And in doing this, particularly with this timing, Jesus lifted up friendship when it mattered most. And I think the message here is there is real power in friendship. There is holy power in friendship. And if you can't see that power, or if you don't know what it looks like, next time you hear someone trashing someone who's near and dear to you, just give a deadpan look at them and say, Carl is my friend. Joanne is my friend. And that gossipy room will fall dead silent, I promise you. That's the power of friendship, right there. Many of us who gather today in this meeting house are of, shall I say, a certain age where we can recognize more than ever our extraordinary need for real friends. Jennifer Senior wrote, "They are the flora and fauna in a life that hasn't had much diversity because you have been so busy, so relentlessly, stupidly busy with middle-aged things, kids, house, spouse. And then you look up one day and you notice that the ambition monkey has fallen off your back. The children into whom you've pumped thousands of kilowatt hours are no longer necessarily partial to your company. Your partner may or may not still be at your side. And then we ask ourselves, what remains? And today, we hope that friendship can be part of the answer to that question. Friendships are precious. They take time to establish. They take effort to grow. Friendships are hard won. And once we win them, we can count upon life's midlife's deep upheaval to test them. Too often, these changes in the middle of life are too much for even well-established friendships to endure. Maybe you've noticed already how some of the dearest folks in your lives can just gently fade away. But I don't want to preach a 30,000-foot flyover sermon on friendship. I want to get a little bit more granular than that. Rather than vague generalities, let's be specific and dig deeper. As time relegates what we achieved together to history's dustbin, the support of our Darien friends persists. It abides. We carry it with us. Lou Converse, you were there from the start. You co-led those Habitat for Humanity trips. We shared a passion. We still share a passion. And it remains undiminished. Friendship prevents staleness. Friendship keeps us moving. It brings renewal to aging's dry landscape, which can too easily look as barren as the wintry ground, wintry frozen ground, I might add. Hope your pipes are okay. Surely the pandemic taught us how essential it is to keep friendship's preciousness and fragility before us. If it has not, well, that's on us. Back in the 1980s, two Oxford psychologists, Michael Argyle and Monica Henderson wrote an essay entitled The Rules of Friendship, and I'm going to give you all 6. And if they sound too feminine to you, these 6 rules, maybe it's because women are better at friendships than we guys are. Let's just say it out loud, huh? That shouldn't surprise us. For nearly 250,000 years as hunters and gatherers, without friendship, women would have never have survived keeping the home fires burning. As we guys were out there engaging in team sports like, I don't know, killing the woolly mammoth and dragging it home. Anyway, 6 rules. Rule number 1, we've already mentioned this one. Friends stand up for each other as we are apart. 2, friends trust and confide in each other. Closeness requires vulnerability. If you don't want vulnerability in your life, you don't want friends. Vulnerability is not always easy. The next 2 are fairly self-evident. Friends support each other emotionally, right on. Friends help us as needed. Remember all the friends who helped you, all those moves, college and after? They showed up. Number 5, friends try to make the other happy, even if that's not finally up to us, but up to the other. 6, friends keep each other up to date on the positives in our lives. In other words, we don't just kvetch together, we celebrate together. Friendship is a matter of struggles and joys, and they belong together. One thing friendship lacks is the rituals that other relationships enjoy. Think of marriage, for example. We mark anniversary years with paper, cotton, leather, wood, flowers early on, silver and gold later on, right? Think of work relationships. We mark work relationships with merit awards early on and gold watches later on. What about friendship? I think children do better than adults on this score. You know, inventing rituals like pricking your thumbs and becoming blood brothers. Remember that on the playground? Or anti-cootie shots. We need to learn something from our children. Remember the movie Big, anybody? Josh and Billy with their intricate shimmy, shimmy, cocoa ba dance in the middle of the street to seal their bond. We could dismiss it as mere playfulness. These rituals are important. Like taking off your pulpit gown and draping it over a chair and sitting out in the pews was important. Friendships need support and celebration from without. The same thing that makes friendship so fragile is what makes it special. In a friendship, we must continually opt in, over and over again. We must always strive to match the self-disclosure of our friends. I self-disclose most to this woman sitting right up here, Cecile. Now for 14 years, can you believe it? Our finding each other happened here in this matrix of friendships. Some of you were even here as she and I stood there and were married. Anybody? I see hands. You remember it. We remember it. We will never forget it. Such sharing is so determinative of who we are. We can't imagine our lives without that moment and these friends. Have you ever met somebody who just seemed destined to become your friend? Well, it was like that with Cecile and me.
once I passed her 3-date rule. She dated guys for 3 times, and if this was the indication, that was the end. And she told me that on the 2nd date. I knew it was either very good or very bad. But there are other friends, Terry and Karen Brewer. You had my back when I had to make sacrifices that incited the ire of some of the church mothers. Caroline Burke, you kept the tasks of leadership in front of us with a steady hand when times got tough. Our friendship was a vehicle through which God worked, I believe. Nancy Sheet, are you watching? You're in Mexico. Saludos a tu mamá. Nancy remained my friend and kept leadership in front of us when I got too crabby. Phil and Elliot, I remember your leadership in this church and how much was gained because of your leadership. And I remember how you never forgot my life as a backstory in that task. And I want to pledge the same friendship right back at you as in your difficult walk now with Patrick. Cecile and I cast our lot with you, and it's a joy to do so. I feel the richness of so many friendships, and I can only mention so few. Ernie and Anna Steiner, they can't be here anymore. I hope you're watching, Ernie and Anna. Gary Holmes, we worked on immigration together, didn't we? And that was a little ahead of its time, I think. A number of things that happened in this church, like the Racial Reconciliation Sunday, were ahead of their time. And I want to say something else about those of you whom I have not met yet. You've joined an incredible congregation. This is a tremendous group of people, and I want to meet you. Please say hello. I don't want this just to be Old Home Week. I tried, as your pastor, to remain focused, not just on remembering the past, which is so rich here in New England, but living in the present and planning for the future. I welcome new friends. Mark Twain once said, "The friend is the one who cries with us when our troubles are not so bad, and who laughs with us when our jokes are not so good." That's Cecile to me. Many others, but especially Cecile to me. And I'm amazed how close we can get without serious flinching. As friendships succeed magnificently, this is the ultimate gift. Your real self is your best self. You don't have to be anyone else. It's a matter of joy and struggle. It's a matter of gifts and weaknesses. It all gets mediated through grace. Friendship is a grace. So you need not pretend to be someone else. Who you are is enough. That's the gift of friends. And we can never mediate that gift alone unto ourselves. Grace is always mediated through others, and let's just call them friends. There are more friends I could name. John Bassler, you blocked for me as I was down with back surgery, and one household got very unhappy with me. And you just said, "Dale's my pastor, Dale's my friend." Did you know how important it is that lay people do that for the pastor? Because if we try to answer people
I'm telling you this for Anthony's sake. If we try to answer people like that, we look defensive, or we look mean, or somehow unchristian. Every congregation needs people like this. Sally Bassler, as we coordinated the care of elders, I felt like I could say anything to you and you would not judge me. It was true. I would be safe. You were my friend. You are my friend. Such caring friends, loyal first to the church, of course. These are not yes people. Seeing you, hearing your voices, it still stirs us 5 years later. And Cecile and I won't forget the difference you made for us and for First Congregational Church. The three most common disruptors of friendship are moving, divorce, and death. And of those, only death is final. We can lose friends to marriage or to divorce, to parenthood and to singleness. We can lose them to politics, right? Even when our politics are the same. We can lose friends to failure, where there's flukish bad luck. We can lose friends to success, to uncanny strokes of good luck. Envy is one startling, grim reaper of friends. Mostly invisible, envy can painfully thin the field of friends. Envy is the evil mother of vast attrition here. Other times, it's much simpler than that. We live life as though under siege, and we fail to reach out to others. Have you had periods like that in your life? Sometimes our misplaced devotion to work over play, we call it play, leaves no room for friends. And that's how most friendships die. Not in some pyrotechnical display of conflict, but in a quiet gray dissolve. What does it all mean? The sad truth is, it might be normal for friendships to fade, even under favorable circumstances. Maybe the real aberration is when we can maintain friendships across decades, even across an entire lifetime. Friendships are more precious and fragile than we reckoned, and that is the rare light by which we see today. John Weigel, you springboarded your family history to create that Racial Reconciliation Sunday. We collaborated. Do you remember this? So when the George Floyd moment happened during COVID, all the other churches looked to us to make the difference, the right kind of difference in this beautiful town of Darien. And you know what, John? When a layperson and a pastor collaborates on something like that, it's so much stronger when it's only the pastor pushing the people. You're my friend, and you're a good tennis player too. One question is whether friendship has always been so fragile as it is today. And I suspect it's more fragile than ever today because of the corrosive acids of modern hyper-individualism. And what I mean is people walking down the street like this and bumping into other human beings rather than noticing that they're human. Did you know the percentage of Americans without a single close friend has quadrupled since 1990? Let that be a motivator. It's instructive. After lecturing at a week-long conference in Chicago, Mother Teresa was asked why she would ever return to Calcutta, India, to pull lepers out of the gutter. She didn't bat an eye. She looked back at them, these Americans who wanted to keep her, and she said, "Loneliness is your leprosy in the West." It's right. We're in a position to do something about that. Much is taken from us as we age. We share our shadowy stories with others over surgeries and immobility and children who never call. But friendship remains a rare and beautiful light. Friendship generates something bigger than itself, so worth the effort. It grows quietly, organically, with a life of its own. And it is a garden so worth tending, worth watering, worth cultivating, which is why we're here today. The more you give as a friend, the more you get back. And beyond their leadership roles, Anthony, Amber, John, Sarah, Max, all the staff, they need your friendship. Do you hear me? Lay down your lives for them. Lay down your lives with them for the sake of Christ. Because they already have a passion to do that for you. Match that passion. Live that connectedness. And notice how foundational friendship is to what grows spiritually within this church and beyond. Amen.